Warning, this episode features some aggressive talks about religion, sexual assault,
violence,
and bad puzzles.
If you're not into that, I would suggest
if you're not into that, if you're not okay with that,
whatever, man. If you're not okay with that, please turn it off. We don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable. So just be aware.
Just be aware. Hey, everybody, and welcome to Indie Games Month, to Raw Dogs.
Lovely.
Dylan, if you had to guess what number of Raw Dogs we're on, what would you say?
128.
That's what it feels like. Actually, it's close with all the extra episodes for Patreon members, but this is episode 104.
Whoa!
104. And my name is Brad, and I was raised Catholic.
My name is Dylan, and I was raised Catholic. Sorta, yeah. We'll get into it.
Yes. Today, Dylan, what game are we talking about?
I had to choose the weirdo. This is a Dylan pick, just to be clear. I chose the new indie game, Indika. Indie Month? Coincidence?
Indika. Actually, Indie Month is just Indika for 5 more episodes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could talk about it that long. It's longer than the game.
You know, Indika is a fucking interesting game.
Yes.
Reviews all over the place. I don't know if you've looked at any of them.
Yeah.
Some are like top, and some are like, I don't know what the fuck this is about.
I saw a lot of 5s hidden in there out of 10.
I think it's just a polarizing game, which I find always to be the most interesting. If somebody says this is the best game ever made and somebody says I do not like this game, that's something that I want to know more about.
Yeah.
But you had already chose an indie game.
Yeah.
For those that aren't following us on previous episodes or social media, if you're just here for the first time, you should stay. We like you. But our indie game month selections, I chose Ayuden Chronicle. Tyler chose Senua's Saga. He actually chose the first one. I thought he chose the second, so we're covering both of them.
Nice.
Hellblade 2. And you chose Pizza Tower.
I did choose Pizza Tower, yes.
And then I just threw Animal Well in there because I just played it, and it's like a really hot indie right now.
Yeah, makes sense.
But then you sent a panic text on the Discord.
Yeah.
I change my my choice.
Yep. I had been listening to Vigigame Apocalypse, not to plug another podcast.
Love Vigigame Apocalypse. Love those guys.
And Michael was talking about this weird indie game he was playing because he plays everything.
Yeah, just like
and
you.
He was describing what it was. And I immediately was I'm like, okay, well, I got to play the Nun game.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what it was going into it. And then I booted up, and I was immediately just kind of transfixed on what this thing was. Not just as, like, I knew what it was going to be, technically, because I did look up a trailer. The trailer's a little, it's a little, what would you say, like, facetious, but...
Sure. Yeah, I really do like the trailers. They have one that's called Fair/Unfair. That was the one that they released later,
right,
shortly before release, and that one's very good.
Yeah.
They recently did, I don't know how recent it was, but they did like 11 facts you should know about Indika, and it's a batshit little trailer.
Oh, I didn't watch that one.
It goes out of order, and it's the devil doing all the narration.
I love that devil.
There's already too many games about Orthodox nuns. Why would you play this?
And I started playing it, and there was a segment that popped up, and I knew, I'm like, because you and I, we've bonded over Kentucky Route Zero. Yeah. That was one of my big picks for Indie Games Month early on.
Transformative.
Yeah. And I said, this is kind of in line with that. And it's a little art housey.
A little art housey. You can fuck yourself off.
Yes. And that's what I liked.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted.
This is art, the video game.
Yes, exactly. And I knew it was going to basically be a walking simulator with small puzzle solving like segments, but I immediately was just like, all right, well, I have to do this. And then everything that goes into it, it does just feel like a movie. It's about as long as a movie.
Yes, there are things that make it a video game. It's a story that I think would also function very well as a 4-episode Netflix series or streaming series.
You could do it in 3, yeah.
It's compact. This game will take you about 4 hours, 5 hours.
I think I got done with it in 4 hours, 10 minutes.
It's a third-person, story-driven game, walking simulator. Sometimes. It has bits of 8-bit, like pixelated, fun flashbacks for Indika, where we see...
Which is also an extremely interesting choice.
I love them. Those are great. Those are very fun. It's set in an alternative Russia at the turn of the 19th century, where religious visions clash with harsh reality. A young nun named Indika sets off on a journey of self-discovery with a most unusual companion by her side, the devil himself.
Mm-hmm. Or is it? Ooh.
Or is it just herself going through psychosis? It is. But is it? Yes, this was made by Oddmeter, Russian game developer. Now, when I started researching for this, there was nothing. You go to the Oddmeter website, and I click about, and it's a story about this dude named John who had issues with religion, and there's no one named John that, like, are the top heads of the studio. It's like a parable about religion is under the About section.
That fucking rules, though.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
But since then, some stuff came out. Studio founder and writer and director of the game, Dmitry Svetlo. He's also an architect by trade, which I find fascinating.
Wow.
So
multi-talented.
All of the architecture in this game got a lot of love.
There's a lot of good design.
This is very much a Russian game. Mm-hmm. And this was getting made in Russia before the war in Ukraine started.
Mm-hmm. And things got dicey. You had to leave, right? To Kazakhstan?
Yes. When the Russian government launched its attack, the team was opposed. There's 14 members of the team. 10 of them left. 4 of them had to stay for family stuff. Mm-hmm. But 10 of them left Russia to finish working on the game in Kazakhstan. Svetlo said the Russian Orthodox Church is one of the weapons of Russian propaganda. From the church, they said to people, you should go to Ukraine and kill them to die for your country. Can you believe it? A church, a Christian church. That's
man. Make America great again.
It's very relevant.
Yes.
It's very relevant.
It's almost as if the bad guys are easy to spot.
Man, it's more and more these days. I can just see what happened in Germany and how a lot of probably decent people were just tricked and led through slow propaganda machine into the worst atrocities of all time. And I see America right now.
Well, you know what's funny? I am not a highly intolerant person. I believe in like absolute freedom for anyone as long as they're not hurting anybody else.
Yeah.
I don't care what that means. If you want to go off and do something and it doesn't harm anything, I mean, fuck it, whatever. But I'm becoming so intolerant of the intolerant.
Yeah.
I don't make excuses anymore. I just call it where I see it because, if we're entering that age, we gotta speak up, and I think this game is about that.
Yeah, it's illustrating Indika. She's going through all of the stages of doubt, and she's feeling repression. She's feeling shame. She's feeling trapped, and that's when the voice of the devil in the English version is Silas Carson.
So good.
He's up there with the voice of Harriet Dubois in Disco Elysium is like one of my favorite voiceovers I've ever had in a video game.
Yeah.
He's so malevolent and like salacious and insipid. He's fucking great.
Yeah, I mean,
what is a sin, Indika? And then that fucking music is all wonky and kind of discordant.
Chiptune.
Well, some of it's chiptune, but some of it, his narration's going, it's off-putting in a good way.
He goes on and on if you let him. I mean, eventually it loops when you kind of shift the reality to kind of be like the demonic world.
Yeah.
And if you listen to it all the way through, because I had to, I would sit and I'd listen to all of it, but then it loops in on itself, and he keeps saying the same thing.
Yeah, which is I think a good thing. And video games need to do that.
Yeah. Otherwise, someone would just sit there and listen to it.
I need dialogue to start repeating. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking to that NPC forever. What else are you going to say? But speaking of souls, we have a beer from Oso Brewing Company. I was there yesterday on the way back from the Apostle Islands. It's in an old Shopko.
Oh.
It's very weird. Huge place, beautiful place. They had live music. They had a pizza joint inside.
Was there like an outline of the old Shopko sign on the outside of it?
I wish they kept some of it. I didn't see anything looking like a Shopko, but this is the peanut butter solution. It's an Imperial Stout, 9.2%.
Now tell me, can you put beer on layaway?
I'm in, I wish I would.
I can't afford it now, but I'll gladly pay you later.
But yeah,
cheers
to the soul, the human soul. Let's drink.
Oh, this is a chunky guy.
Oh,
that's thicker than Pedialyte.
It is a thick, sweet peanut butter beer.
It's very good.
I really like it.
I like that a lot.
I guess I can't do anything worse than that. It's so easy to step over everything you believe in. Somewhere onto your side. Convince me that I haven't done anything bad. I'm talking about intentional unfairness for one's own gain.
Did you say unfair? Is it fair that one tree has 1,000 leaves and the other has 1,001? Is it fair when two people throw the dice, one gets a 6 and the other gets a 2?
Yeah, so the team had to leave Russia. Svetlo now believes it is best for him to never return to Russia, as he has spoken out against the country, breaking quite a few laws by doing so.
He would go to the gulags.
He's like, I'd go to prison for at least 20 years if I went back.
Yep.
And that's insane. But we do have a presidential candidate right now guilty of a lot of things, everything.
You can tell when something's going wrong in a country, and there are a few like very relevant things. It's when doctors start leaving, scientists, and artists. It's when
our teachers are the most underpaid
leave.
people, and they're being criminalized for teaching kids.
Yep. And then they got to put fucking scripture in their classroom.
But yeah, there's a version of our country soon where a president would have complete immunity, and there will be internment camps.
Sure.
Which I think is this season of The Boys is fucking prescient as hell.
Yeah.
The newest episode on Thursday.
Eric Kripke does not give a shit no more.
I love it. Yeah. I love how they let people get in, and then they said, like, they just slammed the door on their faces so hard.
I know.
I'm so in. Yeah. And part of the revenue of this game will be going to children impacted by the war in Ukraine.
Excellent.
Glad
to support it. I would say buy it just for that purpose. Support these artists with a backbone.
Now,
how often do you see that?
Yeah. And I don't know. And he did an interview recently, and he was saying, I am a patriot. I am a Russian, and I love what my country used to be. Like, I love the idea of a lot of the culture, it's like, I'm still super American despite having a lot of issues of what's going on right now.
You can believe in an idea more than an actual practice.
I'm not proud of what our country does, but I'm super proud of what our country started as. Yeah. I saw like 20 American bald eagles the past couple days.
20 American eagles. That shopping mall really needs to diversify.
They're everywhere. But as soon as we got in a kayak, this fucking eagle came down and caught a fish like 50 feet away from us.
Oh, that's dope.
And I'm like, this is the craziest thing. There was some where eagles
We spend too much time in the city.
Well, I'm either the most outdoorsy person in the world, or I need to be playing video games and on a couch.
There you go.
I have a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before we get into kind of the nuts and bolts and the plot of the game, my brief review is I love the story of this game. I love the performances of this game. Some of the gameplay falls short for me.
Yeah.
And some of it's a problem. Like there's chase sequences, which they kind of just become trial and error and not fun, very frustrating. No. And it is a huge wrench in my enjoyment. I'm flowing and I'm loving it. And then I get to a very half-baked gameplay segment where I'm sitting there. I'm like, how much gameplay do I want in a walking simulator? It's like such a delicate mix. Like Edith Finch, perfect amount. But there's really cool concepts in some of the gameplay stuff. My favorite aspect of this is when she's having like those panic attacks where the devil takes over her reality. The world goes red, everything goes distorted, and
the whole world shifts.
The whole world shifts. And then you can traverse the world in different ways, and she starts praying to stop the devil. Those are my favorite segments, gameplay wise in the game.
Those are, in my opinion, those are as well. I mean, those are my favorite parts because the whole game could have just been shit like that. And it's almost like Portal, except a little. I mean, you know what I mean.
I know
you're shifting between the worlds, and there's like different gameplay elements you could have incorporated. But then, yeah, you have these quote unquote kind of actiony segments and a little bit of survival horror at certain points.
Yeah, and something I really like about this as well that functions in a video game sense is you are told very early on finding these items or doing these tasks will net you points. And it says points are worthless. There's no reason to collect these. I need to collect them.
Did you?
Well, I did. Mostly.
You don't get anything for it. They're correct.
What, like faith?
Weird.
I mean, that's the analogy that they're illustrating with that. I did like collecting items though, because I want to see what's hidden in these locations. If you collect an item, you get like points.
Yeah, and I like looking at the items and thinking about it because not only is this like an alternate universe, it's like a subtle steampunk universe. It's really
different.
Interesting.
It's a different Russian universe.
There are animals that wouldn't exist in Russia, or there are machines that have never been made,
like giant bridge moving machines.
Yep. And the way that people's like bodies function is a little bit different. It's very strange.
Part of it though is her reality, and I think a lot of those things outside of her perspective are of normal sizes and varieties.
You think so?
We're in her warped idea because her brain is broken.
I don't know.
Either that or the devil is. There's two options. The devil is a real impact on her that is affecting her, or she is going through a type of psychosis and her brain is creating this devil.
Oh, sure.
It's either.
Well, then there's three options. The devil's real.
Well, yeah, the devil's either real or it's all in her head.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it has to be one or the other.
But she's going through these issues in her experience either of those two ways. And
there are also things that are like, there's like an oarfish, like a longfish in the water. I snooped around in this game to look at some of the stuff. And I saw like creatures that only exist in other parts of the world, like more exotic fishes or fishes that went extinct ages ago. Those are in there as well. And then there's that giant dog thing. That ain't no wolfhound.
But is that her brain? That's her experience of it, but that's not really how it looks. I think that's what's going on.
I think maybe I like the idea that this could be real.
Well, it's an alternate universe, so there's multiple readings of that.
Exactly. It might be just that it's something to unsettle you to create an atmosphere.
It's fantastic. It's fantastical.
Yeah, it's fantastical, but also mundane because beasts like this could be real. It's just they happen to make it and put it. And I think what this game achieves more than anything is a very realistic portrayal of what this world is. I think it does a good job of place setting and then executing anything in terms of how the characters relate to themselves, each other, faith, what the factions are. You kind of get clues as you move along because they're talking about different armies and all this other shit.
Yeah, it's one of the silliest things to me are the obscenely giant tuna cans.
Yeah, those are huge.
They're giant. They're the size of like half of a barrel.
Yeah.
And there's a shitload of them. I mean, you're going through that fish factory sequence, and there are the biggest fish you've ever seen, and one of them's bigger than a whale.
It's the crazy cat lady value size.
Oh, this will last a week.
This will last a day.
Yeah. It's just
I'm a hoarder.
It's cool. Plus it also gives an experience for a game where when things are interesting to look at, and this game's cinematography is phenomenal.
Yes.
It jumps around all over the place, but we start off and
they do a lot of like Death Stranding-esque shit in this.
How so? What do you mean by that?
Like the shifts in perspectives mostly. Especially the points where they're talking. I mean, it's all really well directed. Was this mocapped?
Yes.
Okay. Because the characters look great at times, and some of the NPCs just look like dog turd.
Yes. Yeah.
But Indika looks great.
Yeah, Indika looks great. Ilya looks great. Whenever we get glimpses of the devil.
Love that devil, though.
Such a good design.
It looks like the freaking Krampus.
Yeah. While the points in Indika doesn't matter, something that does matter is taking care of your mental health day to day, getting through the day and staying focused. And something that I found works wonderful is Magic Mind.
I agree.
Now, Magic Mind, you've heard us talk about it before, and if you haven't tried it yet, that's a shame. It's a fantastic product. It's a little, like you call it, Dylan, a mana potion.
It is. It's a little bit of a pick-me-up. As someone who suffers from the curse of ADD, sometimes I lose energy very quickly because I become hyper-focused and I get burnt out. And I do have to have caffeine throughout the day, otherwise I will completely crash. And sometimes that's not always the best option. Sometimes you're drinking sodas, you're drinking too much coffee, then you get the shakes.
I see people drink energy drinks at work, and I'm just shaking my head, knowing they're so bad for you. And
I love them, but I'll tell you what, they mess you up.
They're not good for your body.
No.
And caffeine actually doesn't give you energy. It blocks the adenosine neuroreceptors in your brain, the receptors that tell you you're tired. When those receptors unblock a couple hours later, you experience that caffeine crash. Now, this formula uses 12 active ingredients to help support your body's energy engine day after day. So this isn't a fleeting charge up. It's an enhancement. It is all natural, and I use it with my coffee because I still drink a lot of coffee, but that caffeine crash when it's supposed to be happening, Magic Mind pushes me through, and I'm so productive working on podcast stuff, working through my thoughts on Indika with the help of Magic Mind.
And it makes me feel like I'm actually putting something decent in my body.
It really does. And we're on week 6, so we're going through a journey where we're taking it every day for what it will wind up being forever, but we have an end sight in mind, and we're just seeing how we feel, and we're 6 weeks in, and it continues. Like, your body gets it settles into it, and then I'm just finding myself naturally more tuned in. It's just become the new status quo, and
I think my stomach's working better with it. Honestly, I have less indigestion problems, but I can't make any promises for anyone else, obviously.
Well, you're taking better care of yourself, and you're being more productive, which results in your entire body working better. We have a limited time offer you can use now thanks to our friends at Magic Mind. It gets you up to 48% off your first subscription or 20% off your one-time purchase if you're just curious. Either way, you're going to have a good time. Use discount code HDogcast20. You can claim this at magicmind.com/HDogcast. And discount code HDogcast20 at checkout. Highly recommended. And join us on our journey with Magic Mind. But yes, Indika is a young nun. We start in a convent, and everyone hates her.
Yeah.
And I think it's partially because she's a fuck up. She doesn't even want to be there. She
was basically forced.
We learned through her past that there's a situation where she kind of wound up getting put there because she was struggling with the decision she made. And it starts with that like little 8-bit thing of the falling, just that like falling character, and you're like catching coins that get bigger and bigger, and then she just wakes up, and you know, you get that shot like it's a horror film, that like camera looking up at her face, and she's like running out. It's such an exciting start to the most mundane premise.
I was immediately intrigued. I think the use of like this like 16-bit kind of like style is something to really like ponder, and I'm still not quite sure at what it's trying to achieve with that.
Yeah.
Besides gaining stylistic points, in my opinion, is it if it represents like simplicity, or I keep thinking about like it represents a desire for less complexity.
To me, those segments are just her dealing with her inner self.
Sure.
She's falling, and it's an interesting way of showing the past, because if it had just been flashbacks where it was just a younger her, I think it's kind of nice because memories become elastic after a time.
True enough.
And she just remembers that she was having a little race around this track, and that's when she met Mirko. And we remember things differently.
Yeah. We do remember things differently, but we also remember it as more simplistic, because when you're younger, everything is a little bit more simplistic. And then we jump to hyper-realism.
Yeah. Well, and then there's hyper-realism, and then there's just things that are vastly out of place. And I had issues with that the first time, like that segment where she picks up a bridge and moves the bridge, that puzzle.
Yeah.
When I was thinking that was just a real situation, like a real scenario, I was pretty upset. But when I imagined it as she's just hallucinating and having these weird visions about stuff, then I was happier with it. Then I could rectify that experience, because I'm like, this is beyond stupid if this is a real world. And that it exists where you can pick up giant sections of bridges. This one machine is situated here.
Yeah.
But it's a contrivance for gaming, and it works under my read of the game.
I think some of the puzzles are okay, but I think that in this context, I don't know if they were that successful at all. I think they're well-designed puzzles, but if you've played a single, like, kind of puzzle game that requires you move around and operate the characters to any degree, it's a little bare bones, and I would argue not at all compelling.
Yeah.
I did it to get through it, which is not a great thing to say about a video game.
No, I did it because I just had to, not because it was fun.
Because when you're moving around the machinery, nothing bores me more than in a video game if you're like in a factory level. I do not like factory levels.
No.
I think that's maybe why Final Fantasy VII Remake didn't stick with me the first time.
Those factory levels, man.
I mean, they're everywhere. It's all metal. It's all this. It's all that. And I just got kind of tired of seeing metal everywhere.
Yeah.
And this kind of has that. You do get glimpses of nature, but you can really tell they were not interested in making trees, because I took a good look at those trees, and I'm just like, you hired one guy to do it, and he just wasn't feeling it.
And that's one of those things that in my mind I just write off, oh, she's hallucinating.
Sure.
I have a contrivance, which is the same, like, why stupid fucking multiverse things, anything that doesn't make sense. Oh, it's multiverse.
It's multiverse.
And
And that's literally Marvel's get out of jail free card now.
For anything.
I know. It sucks ass.
But you were talking about compelling gameplay and compelling stories. The first task we have in this game, get vegetables for Sister Smaragda. Mm-hmm. And you start off and you're walking around and you're like, okay, this is a very stark, very desolate, like convent. And
you're in kind of this town that she lives in is very it's like a tundra. They're living in the middle of it. It might as well be like Siberia or something similar to that.
Yes, frozen, not fun.
No, it's
you're
old world bullshit.
I love it. You walk up to this character and you just talk with her. I forget her name, but she's like, whatever, go do your job. You quickly get the idea. Everyone hates Indika.
Yeah.
And then this one lady has stacked up like 8 chairs to get up on something. And did you knock it over? I don't know if it's scripted, because I knocked it over.
I don't remember.
And then Indika's like, oh, sorry. And she just walks away.
I think I avoided it. I
Okay.
think you can.
Yep. But I love this segment, man. It's video gamers need to be dazzled and wowed and wined and dined. And this one is a slap with a cold fish to your face. Like,
I think more than anything, and maybe this is kind of the credo of the game itself, it's playing on not just expectations of the person playing it, but it also forces a certain, like, all video games are kind of essentially about tasks and routine done over and over and over again. And I think playing with that concept is really fucking interesting, because if you experiment with tedium, it does create a different mindset for the person who's having to deal with that. Mm-hmm. And I think that psychologically is probably why I was so intrigued. Like, when you're gathering water from that well and you just have to do it.
And you do it once and it says do it 4 more times or 3 more times.
9 more times.
It wasn't 9.
I believe so.
No.
So it was 10. I believe it was 10 times.
I hope not. And I loved that.
Yes.
Because some games have the tutorials and they make you do stupid bullshit, but they're not self-aware about it. Like, this is pretty boring, huh? You're going to do it again, and you're going to do it again. And then after you do it, the nun comes out and dumps the water and says, we don't want to use water if you're the one that got it.
You know what? And
I was like, that's so fucking mean. I loved it.
What's fun about that too is that it is technically gameplay that directly associates you with the character, because it's a nun. She probably has to do chores all day. And so if you want to get in the mindset of what this character is dealing with, making the story part of that gameplay is probably that's what this game succeeds at, if anything, because a lot of it's just walking around in slow travel, not a lot of running. Sometimes you're on a motorbike, but that's,
it's all very in service of the story, except for the puzzle gameplay stuff.
I have to wonder, because recently there was another game that came out by the Chinese Room.
Okay.
And the Chinese Room made stuff like Everyone's Gone to the Rapture. I think Dear Esther.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever played.
I haven't. I know those games are beloved.
I think those are fine.
Okay.
And I hear that this game is fantastic. And I think that there is kind of there's a market for walking simulators. And I enjoy them when I play them, but it depends on how good what's going around me is. Because if I don't think it's that interesting, then I'm just like, why am I even starting this?
I have almost no tolerance for walking simulators. If I'm not grabbed or interested within 5 minutes, it's tough. Like,
it's really rough.
And I've become someone who's so hell bent on gameplay. Bloodborne changed my approach to games on that, where it's like everything should be gameplay, everything should be a choice.
And I'm kind of on the same. The older I get, the more I'm like that.
Yeah.
But when I was younger, I had a lot more tolerance for like the arty games.
Yeah.
So when those pop up now, it's not an immediate like buy. I have to have this experience. It's like, you got to really prove something to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think this game very quickly proves.
Yes.
When they give me a task, which is the most boring sounding task, to get potatoes for Sister Smaragda, I was like, I'm in. You got me, man. This sounds fucking horrible. I'm in.
And I think I think they created such an interesting intro that you're like, where the hell is this going?
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of movies that do that too, where they show you the world of the mundane before everything pops off.
Yeah.
And it's, it follows this does follow almost exactly the story circle, like the Joseph Campbell story circle. Mm-hmm. And it ends up being more mundane than you can even imagine at the end. So it does kind of close this weird loop. I think the story is kind of perfect.
I would agree. And I'm excited to talk about the ending. First, though, after the water gathering segment, we are about to receive the blood. We're about to receive the blood of Christ. And a little fucking creature jumps out of a nun's mouth. a version of the nun in like her underwear and like dances down the arm at you. And I was like, I'm so in for this now, man. Fuck.
It's good, man. It's really good.
And you knock the blood of Christ out of the priest's hand because it's jumping over at you. And at this point, you are given a task to deliver a letter to Father Herman. And this becomes your mission for like your inciting incident that you're out there.
Yeah.
You don't know what the letter is. You're told don't open it. And this letter needs to make it over there. We get introduced to the devil and the praying sequences. Anytime the devil talks, I'm all about it. A few things happen. We run into a train wreck.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a man is dying from a train crash, and they can't move him, so there's a guy playing guitar for him, and the other guy's like, he's going to die, and he just wants to hear his favorite song one more time. And we're experiencing her out in the world for one of the first times in a long time.
Yeah.
And her interacting with people who
don't necessarily know her, but might respect her based on the cloth.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know why the nuns dislike her so much. She's a fuck up, but she's still there and she's trying to devote herself.
I bet her psychosis is probably like a huge burden on them. Maybe
she's a lot weirder than she thinks she's coming off as.
Yeah,
I think that's right.
I'm gonna bet $1 million.
Yes, we encounter a woman getting assaulted, and you hide in a closet. And this is the first time, I believe the first time, that the devil actually has a physical effect on her. The assaulter hears a noise, so he comes out looking for her, and then she feels the devil grab her. You actually see the devil's hand grab her shoulder and pull her out of the closet. And so she ends up stopping the assault because of that. And she runs outside, and this is when she encounters Ilya, who is a really interesting character because Ilya is the inverse of her in many ways. He believes he is having visions of God talking to him.
Yeah.
So she's going one way, he is going the other way. And he says everything that's happened so far. He's a prisoner. He was in the train, one of the reasons the train crashed.
Oh, yeah. I completely forgot about that detail.
And he says everything that has happened, I was told by God it would happen this way. Like this is...
Yeah.
And then when he meets Indika, it stops. So Indika has an effect on him where he quits hearing the voice of God.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
They wind up commandeering a bike. She kind of helps this prisoner escape, and they get on a journey together. The devil's immediately like, I wonder what he's like down there. He's like all the other men you think about when you're alone in your room. It's like, I'm sure nuns get horny.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a picture of Jesus over in the corner every day, and suddenly you're like, JC, get over here.
He's got them abs.
Dude, God's pretty ripped.
Yeah, I'm kind of into it. We get an interesting philosophical question from the devil around this point, where they talk about quantifying sin. He's like, is looking at the letter the same as murdering somebody? Is sin the same as this sin? And she said, no, of course not. He's like, how many sins is that worth? Murder is...
Rape's got to be more innocent than murder.
Yeah, and they start trying to quantify that. Lying is, you could do 1,000 lie sins to count for one murder sin, and he's just kind of drilling into her.
Well, it's the whole point system. It's the demerits and credits and
an arbitrary number that causes you to level up your shame.
Yeah. At first I was kind of fooled. I'm like, I get to spend points and shit.
Yeah.
And it just...
I got shame 6. And all the points do is help you get more points.
Yep.
Fucking brutal.
It's a little Sisyphean.
Sisyphean.
Thank you. Jesus
I don't like
Christ.
saying it either.
I'm tired. Who cares?
And the devil at one point says, is it unfair that one tree has 1,000 leaves and another tree has 1,001 leaves? And just really trying to peel her apart. And
well, there's a moment she's talking to Ilya that really, it stuck out in my mind. And it's a little later in the game where they keep talking about a soul. And the devil's like, why don't you ask him what a soul is? how do you quantify that? How do you even like, why do you, there's a lot of questions of free will, what a soul is, what the afterlife could be.
Yeah.
And whether or not God is either malevolent or if just absent.
Predetermination. Is it chance that you got to the situation, you made this choice to adhere to your faith? There is all of the profound philosophical inquiries into faith and religion happens in this. And it's interesting watching them on opposite trajectories, Ilya and her. Ilya has an arm that is atrophying. It's fucking dying. Mm-hmm. And he believes God has said can cure him if he gets to the Kudettes. And the Kudettes becomes our MacGuffin. It's a religious artifact being advertised as a cure for physical complications and afflictions of the soul, housed in a cathedral in Spasov. A sign says it's the only natural remedy for infertility, insobriety, infidelity, and other physical complications and afflictions of the soul. Snake oil.
Yeah.
It's a fucking little box.
I mean, I'll just say it. This game is the most anti-theist video game I have ever touched.
I'd say you're right too.
It's anti-theist all the way down. This guy clearly, these developers clearly do not believe in a God.
They were raised to, though.
Yeah, they have morality though, and they understand what these questions represent. And I think that the artist's hand in that is just so like, this is experiential. These are the things they've been thinking about for a very long time.
Profoundly personal.
And it's almost exclusively about morality and sin. And, you know, I think that this game might as well read as like a philosophy textbook. An interactive one.
You know, if a listener can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe there's a single redemptive religious character in the game. All the nuns are mean and they're adhering to their strict teachings, but they're not friendly or moral. They're treated as prisoners.
They're inside.
Ilya is an escaped prisoner guilty of murdering people. And
he's also a very desperate man who falls into religion through his
desperate
need for his personal mental well-being and survival.
It's all about himself.
Yeah.
Indika is the only one who's trying to be a good Christian.
Yeah.
And she's finding it incredibly difficult in the trials of living in the real world.
Yes.
Fuck, man.
It's heavy shit.
Heavy shit.
I love it. I love this game, and I'll think about it probably till the day I fucking die, because I found it to be just so strange. I love new experiences. I like doing stuff. I like reading new books, like weird books. I fucking read fucking James Joyce's Ulysses, for Christ's sake. That is a weird fucking book.
Yeah, I like to be challenged.
Yeah. I mean, I read all of Moby Dick. That was a challenge for another reason, but it ended up being one of my favorite things.
So Indika does read the letter that she's not supposed to read. And you don't actually get to see what the letter says, but essentially it's revealed that the letter is about her, and they're supposed to deliver it to this certain cardinal or priest, and it says, Indika can no longer stay with us. She's being kicked out of the church. A Reddit user, just another user is their name, says, I have extracted a texture from the game resources, did some text recognition via OCR, and have fixed the result since the original text is really hard to read. But it says, our beloved but lost sister Indika, there is no doubt that you will open this letter. Both the fear of God and even simple decency have long been empty words for you.
Whoa.
I only hope that this will happen outside our gates and that we can be spared from any useless scandal. It is with a heavy heart and great sorrow that I write these lines, but God says you no longer have the right to tempt the nuns and scare away our already meager parish. Fucking mean.
Tempt the nuns. What do they mean by tempting the nuns?
She probably, we know she's at least thinking about men. Maybe she's
got a bit of like maybe that's part of like her attitude. Maybe it's like, or maybe
she probably just asks questions that sows doubt in the other nuns.
That sounds right.
The apostolic rule commands us to withdraw from every disorderly person and not communicate with him, and therefore I have no choice but the last one to transfer your further fate from the hands of our sisterhood into the hands of God, his judgment and mercy. Our prayers for the salvation of your soul will never cease with sorrow and blessing. The abbess of the Epiphany Convent, Varvara.
So she was supposed to deliver this, and then when she got there, the priest was basically supposed to say, like, well, I guess you're out, and you can't go really anywhere else, so just leave.
If she made it there, maybe the priest never existed.
Maybe they thought that because there were a lot of perils on the journey. Mm-hmm. Maybe they were hoping that like sending her out alone was its own exile and she would die.
They expected her. They fully expected her to open the letter, and they just said, we hope it's not inside of the gates before you leave.
Oh my God.
Brutal. Yeah. Then we get a lot of just, it's kind of just building the relationship between Ilya and Indika. We start getting a lot of the segments of Indika's past with Mirko. Indika was a young girl, and there was a bad boy who kind of stole a bike from her and her father.
Yeah.
Mirko he's who the ladies think they want, but really they want someone a little more responsible, because Mirko steals a bike, gets her in trouble.
I mean, speak for yourself, honey.
I'm not going to lie. Mirko is pretty cool.
I mean, I'd like to see a realistic depiction of him. I'm like, well, how's he so great? I'm like, okay, I guess a bad boy is fine, but she is so tempted right away by this dude.
He's got long hair. And that attitude, he's very clever, because they have to do this like jumping puzzle. I think it's across frogs or something.
I like that one.
But he says, if you make it to the other side without getting wet, then something. But if you get wet, I get to kiss you.
What's also weird is that you play as Mirko
at one point.
Yeah.
But with the water thing, you get to the end, and even if you made it the whole way, he pushes you in the water. I'm like, that's cute. That's romantic. I get it.
Kinda.
Ryan Gosling did that in a movie. Like,
they live in a frozen wasteland. Why would you shove someone in the water?
Because then he gets to kiss her.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And that's fun.
Yeah.
She escapes to the rooftop in one segment, and they kiss under the moonlight and talk about running away together. I get it. It's young love, and it's fated to end in tragedy.
Her father owns a bike repair shop.
Yep.
Right. And what she's running from is authority in general. Her idea of freedom is literally not having any attachment except for the ones she chooses.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. And when you pair it with the story that's going on in the present tense, I think they mirror each other pretty well. We learned so much about her mindset. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's a realistic kind of story too. I mean, probably back then, if you can count it as back then, because it's an alternate world. I mean, everything was so much more strict.
Yeah, and I get it.
I'm sure there were especially more rules for women. There obviously were. I mean, they couldn't vote or anything. So, I mean, the rules were so different that you couldn't just choose to leave. You'd get disowned.
And she's getting the opportunity to make a choice for herself to do something with her life. Mirko, the segment where you play as Mirko, though, is probably the only boss battle in the game. Yeah. You're collecting coins.
Like a chase. He throws rent in a Pac-Man style little setup, and the dad is throwing wrenches at you at different angles. So if you get hit once, you have to redo it.
And you drop all your coins. You got to pick them up again.
Yeah. I got through it in one shot, but I don't know. The walkthrough, because I wanted to look at all those little segments again. I was kind of marveling at it. Like, you're doing really bad.
I got hit a few times.
Yeah.
But I was getting cocky.
Yeah.
Mirko, though, is caught by the dad outside who pulls a gun on him. And Indika is told, or her father asks Indika, like, do you know this man? And Mirko's like, come on, say you know me. And she could have prevented this. And she denied him 3 times, much like Christ was denied 3 times by a doubter.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Good call. Good catch.
She denies him 3 times, and then Mirko gets fucking killed by her dad. And this breaks her.
He gets obliterated with a shotgun.
Yeah. It's
right through the body.
It's pretty intense. And so, yeah, Indika falls apart. She breaks down. And I'm sure her dad tried to help her get through it, but eventually he realized she's done. She's got to go sort her life out at a convent.
If I saw a man get like shotgun blasted, I don't know if what the PTSD would do.
Your
to
friend and potentially lover that you denied and you could have saved their life, and it was because
the guilt.
This game is about guilt. Yeah, I put down lots of puzzles, lots of things that I found annoying.
There's that whole factory segment really almost kept me from finishing the game. That's just straight up. That's not a joke. I would say it's worth getting through. I think that this game also could have been shorter and just as satisfying if they didn't have these segments.
It slowed me down, and it was getting painful. I put down the scene of the game, though, after the fish factory, because Ilya says, I want to show you something in here. I have it hidden. We need to go check it out. And when they get there, it's 2 finger puppets and this the way the fan is hitting, like the way light comes through, it's causing like this dancing light to happen in the factory. And it's such a beautiful, like, human scene.
And she sings a little lullaby.
How is this? I mean, glimmering lights. It's called a stroboscope effect, like looking through a bike wheel.
Yeah, I'll
Well, I mean, it's pretty.
This Puddle. She's a singer.
Why Puddle?
Because this is Seva. He's guitarist.
It's so beautiful. And then he's trying to talk about how it's like God and like you can feel it. And she's like, no, it's actually a stroboscopic effect. Which doesn't make it less beautiful, but it's him trying to reaffirm his faith and her just reaffirming like the world is just, this is how the world works.
It's like when creationists show you a banana and they're like, look, it was meant to be peeled. It's just, and it fits right in your hand.
Checkmate.
So that disproves it. Think about the eye. The eye is so complicated. Brad.
Yeah.
No amount of evolution ever could have created the eye.
Checkmate.
From little stalks on bugs.
Got him.
Oh, man.
It's
we all see, well, you know, Brad, like all filthy atheists, I believe we all came from snails.
You are filthy.
Damn. You're right.
I would identify as agnostic myself.
The older I get, the more agnostic I am, but
there's a lot of answers we don't have, but I don't believe in one dude in the sky who said, I'm going to have these 50 people write down books that will be approved by a council a couple hundred years later.
We're just going to leave some parts out, though, even though I talked to them, too.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's not a huge part of society's ills.
But I just, that's a great scene. And there's a romance about to bud between the two. At one point, there's even like a naked scene where they have to change because they got wet.
Yeah.
And you can feel it coming, but right when they're having this beautiful moment together, Ilya collapses and he is in a situation where
he's infected, right?
His arm is going to kill him.
Yeah.
And while he's out, Indika makes the choice to cut his arm off with a factory machine. She also then lights up one of his cigarettes. It's like, good for you. You deserve a cigarette after that, Indika. That's a one little sin that you should do.
I mean, I would have to. If the cigarettes were there and I just cut off a man's arm.
Yeah. Ilya is pissed when he wakes up. God was going to save him. God was going to save his arm. God was going to take care of him. But ever since Indika came around, it stopped, and he thinks she is ruining God's plan. When really she's just trying to save the fucking guy because she cares.
Sounds like an abortion metaphor.
I love it. Then she's kind of, you're still going towards the cadets without him. Indika enters a room-twisting, altered dimension puzzle. Mm-hmm. You don't realize you're in a puzzle at first, and then you start noticing the walls and the ceiling share things, and you can see into the like yourself in the other room, and it's the devil.
I love that look of that devil.
Just fucking long, super lanky.
Something I would draw.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a cool segment. This is one of the gameplay moments. If there's more of this stuff, like
I said, the shifts in reality make it more. Even if there were segments where you had to like evade or kind of stay stealthy, kind of like those Plague's Tale, but maybe a little less.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I mean, it's when the devil is speaking to her that the puzzles become illuminated. She wouldn't be able to see the world the way she needs to if she didn't have that altered vision of it to get out.
Right.
The devil actually is helping her along the way. He provides her a towel when she's naked. He helps her escape from the assault multiple times. Like the devil is helping her out, even though it feels very malicious.
And then it's not as if, because if you understand Christian mythology in any way whatsoever, I mean, first of all, the devil is not explicitly stated in the Bible pretty much anywhere.
Yeah.
They call the snake the devil, but nobody said fucking scary guy with horns ever once. The devil is mostly a, bastardization of like the pagan green man or the nature man, the kind of proto-nature god that existed well before it. And so it's a way to kind of ruin that iconography.
Inject that shit into my veins.
Oh my God. And so like the devil or like gods and older gods generally are more human or maybe a little bit more tricksters.
Yeah.
And maybe they have a little bit more going on other than extreme like omnipotence.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting when the devil starts speaking because the devil is providing what he knows Indika needs. Mm-hmm. But he also has those ulterior motives, but you still don't know what they are. Would his goals then be to switch Indika to some sort of dark side?
Everything he's saying is just leading Indika to independent thought and freedom from prison.
Yeah. I mean, hail Satan, first of all, but,
hashtag.
That's another podcast thing,
Hashtag eat ass,
Pretty much.
You get through that puzzle. You get to the Cathedral of John Damascus, where the Cadets is allegedly at. You find Ilya there, and you try and explain to the priest, like, we just need to see the Cadets. We came a long way. He's an escaped prisoner, and it's to try and save his life. The priest immediately rats him out.
Oh, yeah.
And then Ilya steals the Cadets, and he tells Indika, hold up my severed arm while praying to God, and kissing the Cadets to reattach his arm.
Oh, that is creepy.
Yeah, I'm like, what are you guys fucking doing? Indika tries to help, and the priest gets shot by the guards. Mm-hmm. Ilya escapes with the Cadets, and Indika is captured by the guards. And she's in a dire moment where she says to the guard, I'll do anything if you help me get out of here, because he says that she's going to be executed.
Yep.
And
she's pretty much raped, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a horrible assault. She agrees to it, and this is her darkest moment of sin in the game. That's the whole screen goes red, and she's falling, and the devil is circling around her.
I'm glad they didn't show any of that.
Yeah. Oh, God, no.
I don't think I could have handled that.
As soon as the assault is done, the guard says he's not going to let her out, and he lied. And this is when the devil has fully entered her physical realm. And he attacks the guard, and she gets out.
How does he injure the guard?
Well, you see him actually like physically attacking the guard, but when she turns around after getting out, a bookshelf has fallen on him.
Oh,
Further cementing the fact that,
he broke something.
well,
He couldn't move.
it really looks like maybe Indika caused the bookshelf to fall on the guard. It's done in a way to where you could second guess it either way.
Sure.
She gets outside, and you find Ilya outside of a pawn shop, incredibly drunk.
With a giant bugle in his hand.
Yes, and he said the Kudets was useless, and he sold it so he could buy like the bugle because he used to play guitar and he can't anymore. And there was one segment where he finds a guitar
And he strums with one hand.
and then Indika, so insensitive. She's like, "Can you play something?" He doesn't have a fucking arm, Indika.
Kind of needs two arms.
Indika. You can't ask that to a one-armed man. I mean, you can learn, but he's newly one-armed.
They need to get him a slide guitar.
Yeah. There's still things he could do. But he's just trash. And
Yeah, he's
like,
drunk as shit.
He's like, they only gave me 5 rubles for it.
Mm-hmm.
And Indika still thinks the Kudets is her way of saving her life, like her faith. So she goes in and demands it back. And
He tries to sell it for like 30 rubles.
tries to get a bunch of money. But
Yeah.
I think Ilya is getting chased or something outside because the guy runs out.
Now this is the first time in the game we're in complete first person. We're in first person.
Yeah,
in that
you're right.
segment.
Yep.
That's also a really interesting perspective change because now it's not just because third person represents something in storytelling and first person represents something in storytelling. Now you are her. You're not watching her.
Yeah.
You're dealing with the outcome of this entire thing. I didn't know this was going to be the end of the game.
A lot of people have issues with it.
Yeah.
And I think, what it really comes down to is people was thinking the game was about one thing and they wanted some climax to happen. And to me, this is a climax.
It is.
This is her complete faith collapse and her moving forward. But it's not a boss battle. It's not the Joker all of a sudden has gotten the compound, whatever. And
The Bane Venom or whatever.
it's completely true to the story and her arc, and it is appropriate.
Yep.
So she picks up the Kudets and she opens it up, and inside it is bottomless and empty. And she looks back and forth, and at this point, you can just keep shaking it, and you'll get more coins. You can level up as much as you want. It'll keep going forever, and it gets you nowhere.
She does prayers in front of it as well.
She does everything.
I know. And if you look at yourself in the mirror, you're the devil still. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
That's cool. I fucking love that.
Well, and she accepts that, like, she sets it down like nothing's going to happen. And then she's no longer the devil. She's herself. And she stands up and walks outside.
Did you notice her rosary crumbles?
I don't think I did notice that.
The rosary crumbles in her hands,
That's very good.
isn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The devil's reflection is gone. Her faith is completely lost, and she moves on with her life.
I mean, just insane. I love this game.
I think it's just a super fitting end. And
I don't think it's a masterpiece.
No, there's a lot of gameplay issues.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gameplay issues, and some of it's wonky, but a perfectly crafted and performed story. I love all of the story beats. It's just when it tries to be a video game when it doesn't need to.
It reads quote unquote reads as a Russian novel.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, books didn't have like story structure. It was just a series of events happening right after the other in kind of chronological order. You know how books used to be kind of written like that? Mm-hmm. There's no like thematic end to it, like no climax, but they choose a point to leave off at. Like, because it's more or less like a depiction of life, like a slice of it. This is just one slice of her life. And it's going to continue on past then.
Yeah. And I hope she gets out. She is still wanted for crimes and murder, and I hope she escapes. Regardless, though, she is free from her shackles. Mm-hmm. But it's when it tries to be a video game and it doesn't need to be. When I'm already having a great time, in my walking simulator and you try and force gameplay on me that is bad.
Sometimes puzzles really piss me off.
Puzzles and games are very, very hit or miss. Rarely do they satisfy my itch for what I'm looking for.
It's environmental puzzles that kind of piss me off. And I'm saying this as a huge Zelda fan, but
Yeah.
you know, that game is built around that.
I think the game was Cocoon that I played recently. Great puzzles.
Yeah, it's fun.
All of them feel organic, and they give me
played about 2 hours. Did you beat the whole thing?
I beat it. Yeah,
Was it good?
I loved it, and the puzzles build on themselves, and it gets to what I'm trying to say is, if the puzzle isn't great, and if the gameplay is not satisfying, if there's a chase sequence and it's not working, not because I'm not good or doing what I want, the game isn't able to do.
I was shot the first time I was on the bike.
Oh, and the dog chases you, and it's just, you died, try it again, try it again.
You can bypass that dog pretty quickly, though. I just remember, like, because it's confusing of where you're in those town segments, where to go next.
Not the town one, the second dog when you're in, like, the tower.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The gameplay was not additive. It was indeed subtracting from my experience of the game. It's weird to say this is a game I would want less gameplay. I'd want more of the segments that I found it to be.
If you cut out those, you think it, well, it probably would have been shorter, which, I mean,
it's already $25 and that's pushing it.
I know.
I'm very glad to have spent the money on it, not only because I got a great experience out of it, but it's also supporting children that were affected by war.
You're also supporting these kind of rebel artists.
It's all good stuff. It is good stuff. Yeah.
I didn't mind spending the money.
No, I just wish that there had been more of the puzzles that relate to the ideology of the story.
Yeah.
With the prayers, like the concept of collecting points that you're told mean nothing to level up to Repression 7. That shit's cool to me.
I like that they add that in there because it's when you collect points in games, you expect a reward at the end of it when really there's just no reward at all. And they go through the trouble to tell you that it's worth nothing, but in the back of your mind, you feel like you're being tricked. Isn't that the feeling that you had when you first played it? Like, I thought, like, surely they're full of shit. Otherwise, why would this be here?
When I first played growing up Catholic, you think like, oh, I'm getting closer. I'm doing good. And this game illustrates the point that they're trying to make where ultimately that faith isn't getting you anywhere. And she finds an empty, bottomless hole where she's looking for salvation in the end.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff. Do you have any final thoughts on Indika?
I mean, I really wanted to talk about this because I thought it was so, like, interesting and unique. And I think that you should support these people not just because it gets you out of your comfort zone, but you'll also have a good time with it. If you're a decent, intelligent, thinking person, you will find something here. And I wanted to give it a spotlight instead of just, like, yanking people's chains about it. I think that this is definitely worth experiencing.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to give it a spotlight. That's why I was so panicky about, like, we gotta do this one.
Yeah.
And I knew you'd get something out of it, especially because our tastes align so much when it comes to, like, story in video games.
And gameplay.
Yeah.
Like what we want out of a game.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes a game doesn't have to be gamified to be a good experience. I mostly like experiences. Hell, that's half the reason I got a PSVR.
But when you break a game down to what makes a game, and it's the fusion of storytelling, visuals, sound, and what really makes games unique is choice. So if a game largely takes choice out of it, but then it really illustrates moments of choice or a character making a decision, you feel it a different way than if you're just watching it.
Right, because it's communicating directly to you. Movies don't communicate to you. You are communicating with the thing going on in front of you.
You have to choose, despite shaking the religious artifact as much as you want, you're the one who has to say, I'm done, set it down, which is different than you watch a character do it on a show, because then you're the one with the agency that has to make the choice.
And you see it all in kind of real time. Movies would make that a montage. Can you just imagine a montage of someone just going like this and it makes a cut and they're doing it later and they look a little bit more exhausted and then it's later and they're just tired. In a video game, you have to actually do the things. And some of it is mundane. I think this is also a commentary on video games itself if you really had to break it down.
Especially the sequences where it goes to the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a part of me that wishes to believe that those annoying, like, environmental puzzle sections are the developer kind of being like, oh, yeah, you want a video game? Here's a fucking video game. You're not going to like it.
Yeah.
Maybe they were just trying to say something with that. I don't know if they were done poorly on purpose, but there were segments that worked so well, it leads me to believe that's not the case.
I think that they just felt like they needed to make it more of a game when they didn't.
Yeah. But all in all, I think it's one of my tops of the year just because of what it is.
So far. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And don't forget to check out Magic Mind. Go to magicmind.com/HDogcast and use discount code HDogcast20. That gets you up to 48% off your first subscription or 20% off one-time purchases. We highly recommend it.
Get healthy, freaks.
We're going to rank it.
Let's do it.
I'm curious. This is not an easy to rank game. Balatro or Indika?
Balatro. I'm sorry. Do you agree?
Yeah. It's just, to me, one of them is like a crack handheld game versus moving art.
Apples and carrots, you know.
A Plague Tale Requiem or Indika?
Indika.
Wow, we chose a pretty good spot. I would agree with that. This puts Indika at 35.
Hey, it's still not Kingdom Hearts.
It's still great. We have a lot of bangers, though. I mean, Okami, Inscription, Disco Elysium, God of War Ragnarok, Dune 2016. Mm-hmm. We just covered a lot of good games. Yeah, so Indika is at number 35 on our list of 56 games, with the last one being Kingdom Hearts 1.
Poor Sora.
Fuck Sora. If you've enjoyed listening to this, we appreciate your time and your taste in podcasts. Mm-hmm. If you want to get access to more episodes early, exclusive, bonus podcasts like Doggies After Dark. There's a whole bunch of exclusive stuff on our Patreon, patreon.com/HairTheDogcast. There's free trials as well. So if you're curious, jump on for a week, download a few episodes, see how you feel. And that's cool too. We have a great Discord, great community. We'd love to have you there. Mm-hmm. A special thank you to our executive producers, Ryan Christianick, Kipper, Brian Ward, Jordan Hoff, Phil Wright, Phil Just Phil, Cole Delgardno, Bryant Ross, Kelly Gutowski, and Justin Melly. We appreciate your support. And next week, we will be discussing Animal Well.
Nice.
How far are you? Have you beaten it?
Not very. I'm going to have to play it.
Julian's going to be joining us.
Okay.
And I told him, he's like, how long do you think it would take? And I said, well, there's three options. It's either a snack, a meal, or an obsession.
I'm going to treat it like a meal.
Because there's a few different endings.
Yeah.
And there's I just want a fun little game. There is, I want a complete experience. And then there is the going down the rabbit hole experience.
Yeah.
I went for the meal as well.
I don't think I'll go down any rabbit holes.
Yeah, but so Animal Well next week, and then we'll also be doing Pizza Tower, Hellblade 2, and Ayuden Chronicle. And
I got to get going on Ayuden.
I have a lot of thoughts.
I'll be honest with you. I played a little bit of it, and I'm like, ugh, am I gonna finish this?
I am going to be very brutally honest with myself.
Okay.
And yeah, thanks again for listening.
Be careful what you wish for, Bradley. It's me, the devil.
You've always been my devil, Dylan, since we started this. Who's trying to help me, but also is really evil about it.
Have another beer, friend.